Chapter 6. A City Girl Cuts Loose. Get another wet towel. I heard a woman's voice. It's okay. She's coming. Around. A man said. His voice was close to my ear. I opened my eyes. I was lying. On my back. On something. Hard. Looking up at a crowd of people peering down at me. Bits of conversation floated by like pods of milkweed. Is she all right? She fainted. Should we call 911? I heard music. Maybe I was in the middle of a square dance. Fiddles and banjos swirled around in an upbeat tempo. All right, give her some room. Please. Excitement's over. It was Roy's voice. I turned my head and saw him crouching by my side, his forehead creased with concern, his eyes soft. I could smell his aftershave. Something fresh, like the outdoors, but I wasn't sure what it was. The group began to disperse. What happened? I asked, glancing at a copper ship's lantern that dangled from the ceiling. Found a wet towel. Something cool was on my forehead. I touched Roy, scratched his chin, and gave a slight smile, prompting the dimples in his cheeks to appear. "TDs say you fainted," one groaned. Then I started to get up. Whoa, not so fast. He put his hand under my hack and helped raise me to a sitting position, back and helped raise me to a sitting position. I looked around and saw a crowded room with people eating at tables, clustering around a bar and throwing darts. The antler. You all right? He gave my arm a little tap. I took a deep breath and nodded. I think so, I said. I just want to get up. He took my hand and slowly I stood up and brushed off my clothes. I ran my fingers through my hair and tried to smile. Thank you. No problem, he said. Let's get you to a chair. We walked to a table against the wall, while I tried to figure out what had taken place. Did I faint in his arms? Oh God, please tell me that wasn't what happened. Did you, catch me when I fell? He nodded. I could feel my cheeks burning. First the kiss, and now this. I couldn't seem to stop embarrassing myself with this man. Well, thanks. ... Again, I said quietly. I sat down on a red leatherette banquette and pressed the wet towel to my forehead. Roy pulled out a chair opposite me. No problem. Again, he said. The fiddle music was still playing, and I realized it was John Denver singing "Thank God I'm Country Boy." Just sit for a minute. Get your bearings, Roy said. I'm fine, really? He motioned toward the door. Maybe we should go outside and get some air. Do you want to do that? What I really wanted was to stop making a fool of myself in this town. No thanks, I said. TM really okay? I don't know what happened. A waitress came by and put 2 glasses of water on the table. Seems like you're always coming to my rescue, I said. In the right place at the right time, I guess. Roy dug a hand into the front pocket of his jeans and produced a folded $100 bill with 5 20s inside. This is yours. You dropped it when you, I looked at the folded cash, the little puncture mark on Franklin's nose. I didn't want it. Here, he said, putting the money in my hand. I stared at it for a moment, and then I took out my wallet and tucked the bills into the back. Yeah, ... thanks. John Denver ended his song and the thrum of an electric guitar took over. A handful of notes followed by a woman's sultry directive. Let's go. Girls, Shania Twain's spunky voice filled the room as she sang, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. We sat there for a minute while the dance floor began to fill up, and then Roy said, maybe what you need is to get out there. Sounds like your kind of song? He motioned toward the dance floor, crowded with gyrating bodies. How about it? Shania's voice echoed all around us. Some line about women having the prerogative to have a little fun? A dance with Roy? Did I really want to do that? Oh, what the hell? I thought as I stood up. All right, I felt my face flush. You know the 2-step? He asked as we found a spot on the floor. I know the Texas 2-step. That'll do. He used one of his hands to hold mine and put his other hand on the back of my shoulder, creating the proper space between us. The frame. I felt as though I were 12 years old and back at Trimmy Taylor's, the dance studio that used to be in Pine Point when I grew up there. Trimmy, with her petite dancer's body and multiple facelifts, which made her look forever awestruck, would always tell us, "Make the frame, make the frame." I could still see her dark hair piled high in an endless bun and smell her floral perfume as she whirled about, always keeping her partner at the perfect distance. Thank God for Trimmy, I thought, as Roy began guiding me around the floor. He was so smooth. I could have had glue on my shoes and it wouldn't have mattered. Asterisk, I knew you could swim, but I didn't know you could dance. I told him as we tried a couple of, well, swimming's not my only talent, he said, twirling me. I noticed that we were the only couple doing a two-step. Everyone else was just making random movements. We circled the floor, doing turns and moves I couldn't believe I remembered. They have places that teach dancing way up here in Maine, I asked, pretending to be surprised. Roy twirled me again, and then we twirled together. Our hands interlocked for a moment, and the room held us in a soft embrace. He put his hand back on my shoulder. Maybe they do, and maybe they don't. Ah, he's being mysterious. Roy looked at me and smiled, and I smiled too, and then I started to laugh. It felt great to be dancing. I couldn't even remember the last time I had danced. Looks like they're all afraid of us, Roy said, as my feet glided through the moves. What do you mean, leaving? He looked around and laughed. They're all I saw, that only a few couples were still dancing. Everyone else had gone to the edge of the floor and was watching us. Roy turned and then took my hand again. Didn't know city girls could cut loose like this. About city girls? Till bet there are a lot of things you don't know well. I know one thing, he said as he guided. Swim, because me around effortlessly. It's a good thing you can't wait a minute there. I let go and stopped, pretending to be insulted, feeling a little electric spark go up and down my arms. I object to your characterization of that incident. I clearly can swim, and I was doing it when you got to me. I was just a little tired from the rip current, that's all. Asterisk, okay, Roy said, waving his hands. May I rephrase my statement, counselor? Isn't that what you lawyers say in court? Can I rephrase the question, Ian, or something like that? He took my hand and we began dancing again. Yeah, something like that, I said. Okay, permission granted. Rephrase. All right, what I meant to say is that it's a good thing you were having some trouble swimming, because otherwise we wouldn't be dancing right now, and you're a decent dancer? The song ended and the people standing at the edge of the dance floor actually applauded. Roy stepped back and clapped for me, and I laughed and made a little bow. Then a few lone notes on a piano signaled the beginning of something much slower. It was that awkward moment when I never knew whether to stand there and wait to see if we'll be asked again or say thanks and sit down. Thanks, I said as I turned to walk away. A number of couples were coming back onto the dance floor. Roy grabbed my hand. Wait, you can't leave yet, swimmer. This is a good song, he smiled. The dimples were showing again. I wondered how he could tell what the song was from only the first few notes, but then I realized I could do that too, with songs I loved. All right, I said. He took my hand again, but this time he moved in close and pulled me against him. I put my other hand around his neck as Willie Nelson began singing Always on My Mind. Oh God, this was starting to feel weird. Slow dancing to a love song with somebody who wasn't Hayden. Somebody who had saved my life. It was weird, all right, but it was also kind of nice. I felt small like a ballerina against him. His arms seemed so strong around me that I thought he could have picked me up with just that one arm. I didn't even know what my feet were doing. I was coasting along, his hand resting on my back. My face was close to his. His aftershave smelled a little bit like cedarwood, and it smelled nice, that lucky. Roy leaned his head down. So, are you always? What do you mean? Lucky that I didn't hit the floor and crack my head open. He laughed. Well, that too, one guess. but I meant he moved his hand just slightly on my back, and a prickly sensation went all the way down my body. I was dancing with someone who wasn't Hayden, and I was feeling well, pretty good about it. Oh, you thought that was luck? I gave a cavalier laugh. Till of you know, I used to play darts all the time when I was in college at Oxford. Oxford. And you still play Elade? Not really, unless you count tonight. Well, maybe you should. Maybe this could kick off a new career. I was about to say that playing darts wasn't the kind of thing Hayden would enjoy, but I stopped myself. It's hard to find the time, I said. With work and all, I thought about Roy's job as a carpenter, and how nice it would be to work an 8-hour day and be done with it. No staying late, no bringing work home, no working on the weekends. You must play darts a lot, I said. You're good, he shrugged. Then he whispered, not good. Enough to beat you. His breath was warm against my neck. We're back to luck again, I whispered back. I closed my eyes and we danced in silence for the rest of the song. Would you like something to eat? Roy asked. When we returned to the table, helped soak up the margaritas. I wondered how he knew what I'd been drinking. Actually, I would. I realized I'd been cheated out of dinner again and wondered if I'd ever get a full meal here. I'd love the meatloaf. You should try the chowder too, he said, pronouncing it the same way Paula did. Chowder. It's really good here. Okay, sure, I said, figuring I might as well go for a third bowl. Maybe this time I'd actually be able to finish it. He got up and spoke to the waitress, who was a few tables away, and I saw her write something on a pad. Then he came back and sat down. So, where did you learn the two-step? He asked. There was a little white container full of sugar, sweet and low, and Splenda packets near me. I spun the bowl around in the middle of the table. Trimmy Taylor, who? Roy had a funny smile on his face, as though he thought I was making this up. I began rearranging the packets by color. Sugars on one side, sweet and lows in the middle, and Splendas on the other side. Asterisk Trimmy Taylor. She taught all the kids in Pine Point to dance. That's in Connecticut, where I grew up. Roy nodded, but I couldn't tell if that meant he knew of the town or not. He took one of the others, his hand almost touched mine, Splendus, and moved it to where I was putting the Pine Point is in Fairfield County, I said. Close is, or west gives, to New York State. Do you know where Greenwich, know where Fairfield County is? He said. Then he got up, and for a moment I was afraid he was going to leave, that I had insulted him or said something stupid, and he wanted to get away. But he came over to my side of the table and sat down on the banquette next to me. I felt goosebumps break out on my arms. Well, I said, trying not to let him hear the tremble in my voice. Trimmy had a studio, and she taught ballroom dancing. I laughed. She was 1,000,000 years old. She taught everybody in town to dance? Roy smiled. We could have used Trimmy up here. The waitress came back with 2 bowls of chowder and a basket of rolls. Where did you learn to dance? I asked, unable to picture anything like Trimmy Taylor's in Beacon. He passed the basket of rolls to me. Well, that particular dance. Let's see. A girl taught me that. Oh, I said, taking one of the rolls. A girlfriend? I asked, trying to sound casual. He nodded. Yes. Then he added, but that was a while ago. I felt a little sense of relief, and then I caught myself again. What was I doing flirting with this guy when I had Hayden waiting for me back? Roy stirred his soup. So what do you do? In Beacon? I tore off a small piece of the crusty roll, spread some butter on it. I'm here because of my grandmother. She asked me to take care of some business for her. Here in Beacon? Yes, I said. She used to live here. Really? When was that? Oh, a long time ago, I said, tasting the clam chowder and liking it even better this time. Something about the little sprigs of fresh dill made it just perfect. You know, this soup is really good. They're known for it here, Roy said, and for a few moments we concentrated on eating. I finished the bowl without stopping. I guess I was hungrier than I thought, I said as I put down the spoon. He looked at me and smiled. Dancing will do that, and darts. I could smell the beer on his breath, and it smelled bitter and sweet. He sat so close that his arm brushed against me twice. I wondered if he knew he was doing that. The meatloaf came, and it was fantastic. I savored every bite, trying to figure out what they had put in there to make it taste so good. We lingered over dinner, ordering coffee at the end. Finally, Roy looked at his watch. It's almost 11. I've got an early start tomorrow? He let his hand on the table. I wanted to touch it, just brush my hand over his for a second. Me too, I said. I'd better get back. I was still. Will do me good, feeling a buzz from the drinks. I'll think the walk was walk. No, don't do that. I'll give you a lift. Roy slid out of the seat. That is, if you want one. Yes, I wanted one. I didn't want the evening to end. Not just yet. I felt too good. Sure, that would be great. We walked toward the door, through the aisle, where people were clustered in little groups, past the tables, where customers were drinking and telling stories, past the bar, where couples were turned toward one another on bar stools, and where Skip was pulling wine glasses from an overhead rack. Skip nodded to Roy and then did a little double take as he saw that I was walking out with him. He shot us a big, wide, missing a molar grin. Hey, he said as he gestured for me to come over. Don't forget this. I walked to the bar, and he handed me my copy of Forbes. I almost laughed, recalling my thoughts when I'd put it in my purse so I wouldn't be bored. Oh yeah, thanks, I said, tucking it back into my handbag. A salty breeze was blowing outside, and the street was quiet except for the waves crashing on the beach by the seawall. I'm just down a couple of blocks, Roy said as we walked past the storefronts, all closed for the night. The sky was pulsing with stars. I can't believe how clear it is. I pointed straight up. Look, there's Orion. I see it, Roy said. The 3 stars are the belt, and those are his arms and legs. He traced the outline with his finger. The stars seem so much brighter and closer here, I said. They dangled over us like a net, holding us in place. Roy looked back at me. Maybe they are, Ellen. Maybe they are. He opened the passenger door of the truck and I sat down on the bench seat. He got in the driver's side and tossed his jacket in the back. We drove in silence through the town, past the beach and the construction site where he worked, up the side road, and down the street to the Victory Inn, where the porch lights glowed a soft yellow. Then he pulled the truck to the side of the road. I was holding my leather purse in my lap, and Roy began to stare at my hands. I could feel him staring, and all I could think about was Hayden and what he would think if he knew I was sitting in this guy's truck, having my hands stared at. And why was I sitting in this guy's truck, having my hands stared at? I knew I needed to get out of there, but I couldn't move. And then Roy started tracing his fingers down each finger, over the knuckles of my joints. I felt as though I had been wired for electricity and plugged into a wall socket. I could barely breathe. Surge of heat moved through my whole body. He turned his face to me and then he leaned in. He took his hand off mine and started to put his arm around me. Then he stopped. Asterisk, can we move this tote bag out of the way? He asked, nudging the purse on my lap. His dimples were showing again. Sure, I said in a breathy, barely able to speak way. I'll put it on the floor? But he had already begun to pick it up. Except that he grabbed it by the side and suddenly the whole purse turned upside down, spilling out half the contents. Lipsticks and pens tumbled to the floor. My cell phone and a bucket of loose change scattered onto the seat. My wallet and iPod fell out along with a handful of dollar bills. And finally, the envelope from Winston Reed, the one that said Mr. Cummings on the outside and held my grandmother's letter, flew to the floor. Sorry, Roy said as he began to help me gather up the pieces. Guess I don't know how to handle a purse. I started to laugh. Then he picked up the envelope with my grandmother's letter in it, and I saw his grin disappear and a look of alarm come over his face. What's this, Winston Reed Jennings, attorney? At law, that's the law firm I'm with, I said, picking up my iPod. Your law firm? He sounded angry. The man who had traced Orion's belt with his fingertip was gone, and I had no idea why. What's wrong? I know what you're doing. His eyes had gone cold. I should have known this would happen all along. I clutched my cell phone and a lipstick. Should have known what would happen. What are you talking about? He waved the envelope at me. This is what I'm talking about. Suing me over the dock, falling off the dock, suing him. I couldn't get my mind around this. I don't understand, I said. Why would I be suing you over the dock? I fell off, you helped me in. I was about to add that even if I wanted to sue someone over the dock, I'd be suing the owner of the property and the construction company, the deep pockets, not someone who just worked there. But he never gave me the chance. You big city lawyers, he said, shaking his head. You're all alike. Nobody takes responsibility for themselves anymore. It's always somebody else's fault. And you lawyers have made it that way. We were all alike? I'd made it that way. Why? Was he attacking me and my profession? I still don't understand why UT angry, I said, and what a I really don't appreciate you criticizing me. Or he pointed to the envelope. You're a lawyer. Lawyers sue people. You said yourself somebody could get sued because of the dock. The dock, I said. Oh my God, all I meant was that it needed to be fixed. He shook his head. That's not what you meant. I could feel the blood rush to my face. He was aiming to put words in my mouth. Who did he think he was? You're completely wrong, I said. What's in that envelope has nothing to do with you. Roy glared at me. Oh, it doesn't? Then why is my name on it? Your name, yeah, my name, Cummings. Cummings? Was his name Roy Cummings? Oh my God, he had the same last name. It was beginning to make sense. Now all I had to do was explain that he wasn't Mr. Cummings. Not the one I needed to see anyway, and that I wasn't there to sue anybody. I was there to fulfill my grandmother's dying wish. That's what I should have done. But by then I was too angry. Way too angry. I grabbed my purse and got out of the truck. You don't know anything, I said, my voice shaking as I stood by the open door. Not about lawyers, not about lawsuits, and especially not about from New York than a narrow-minded guy from, and I'll tell you this, I'd rather be a big city lawyer man who jumps to conclusions. I tossed back my head and looked him straight in the eye like a missile locking onto a target. See you in court, I said, slamming the door. I was fuming as I walked up the path to the Victory Inn. I hoped he believed I was going to sue him. I hoped it gave him nightmares. What a supercilious bastard. God, I was lucky I didn't let him kiss me. What the hell was I thinking? The door creaked as I stepped inside. The lobby was empty, except for the soft glow of 2 sconces and the blue haze of Paula's computer. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, trying to calm myself. And then I thought, let him kiss me. Wait a minute. I would not have let him kiss me. That was never going to happen. I would have stopped him. I was about to stop him. I was engaged, for God's sake. My ring was upstairs in room 10 or room 8 or whatever it was. I had a whom I loved dearly and who was back in New York waiting for me. Yes, and he was brilliant. There wasn't a problem he couldn't solve, and he was refined, and he was a great dresser, and he was about to be a rising star in the world of politics. I had a sudden vision of Hayden, at his desk in one of his Savile Row suits, maybe the charcoal gray with the tiny pinstripes and a starched white shirt and Hermes tie. Probably the blue one with the little H's all over it that were so small they didn't look like H's. There never would have been a kiss,